Heroes and Legends, Dynasties, the Cibic. The Cibic bank run, their leadership that originated from the dimensions were transported to the Cibic galaxy respectively. And it was during this time that the two friends, Lash and Hetama, who was off to Scotia, chilled out in one of the beach planets of their shared galaxies and reflected on the past. Lash smoked his famous cigars as Hetama reminds him that they must stick together in order to stand. Lash agrees as he puts out his cigar and resumes his spy work for the glory of the Cibic. You don't have to worry, Hetama. I know. We spared our forces' lives during the Great War, and our treachery as we betrayed both the Irishans and their allied forces left unnoticed. So many things has happened these past 100 years, Hetama replied. First of all, we did not even age since that day. Strange things are happening, and we grew up to see another generation. Now everyone is poised in themselves, ready to pounce this opportunity of power. Lash, you know what you must do. Yes, my friend. I must go into the shadows in order to gain power, not just for Civic or Scotia, but for all those yet unborn from our side. Lash then goes out to achieve his goal and mission. It was during the battle to infiltrate the Almalo Orishian, which the hired guns of the space mercenaries and the Almalo faction and forces of the Civic, that being of the Universal Civic Forces, Jacque, who was a wealthy giant and who joined the Civic, as this meant that they could be resurrected again. Also Denny, who was a foreign mage who used her mage abilities and magic to hold off against the powerful Rishins, and Badu, the last of the great Crimson Swordsmen, used his sword plate to hold back the black sword of the Almalo. While all this was going on, the infiltration of their secret base to steal their plans were in motion. Lash faced Ven, who was a powerful warrior, who was actually at the base in which they were invading, and he had to get past Ven. After getting past Ven, he had to get past Mr. Wong, who was an old man, skilled in various fighting styles. Lash was stunned as he was suddenly disarmed by this man. He didn't even saw him moved. Mr. One then warned him not to trespass against the Russians and their goals in this universe. But the civic time is long past, and they should just settle in their galaxy and be merry. Lash said that he did not take orders from outsiders, especially an old man who is way past his prime. But Mr. Wong assured him that he wasn't. Mr. Wong's fists were like freight trains, and Lash barely blocked them as he was using specialized technology. Extra shield paddings that was on his coat that was invented by the civic scientist. The twin sisters, Norris and Monique, and they were working on a secret project for the Cibic, which we get into a little bit later. Elsewhere, Lash then used smoke screens and stink bombs to get past Mr. Wong as it derailed his senses. And then Lash tried to get past Yang, who had snuck into the base, and Homer, who had joined Yang. Lash then used his own fighting skills and his guns and small blades to get past these two. After getting past them, he was able to reach the main hub of the base and collect the data that he needed. With that, he fled and retreated. Elsewhere, the Civic forces were being attacked by another bank-run power. This power was of the Baja. The Baja forces want to attack the Cibic to prove and test their mettle. You see what exactly the Cibic were up to. They're being led by Holster, who was the right-hand king of the Baja, who was the right hand of the king of Baja, and Alistair, who was the Baja receipt commander, and Janice, who was a miracle warrior and very skilled in the medical field as well, and Dora, who was the head architect of the Baja. This was a formidable force. The cyborg Chow, who was also like the son figure of Crystal, who had survived during the Cibic's first appearance in the dimensions, and Jacque, who was the rich giant, fended off against the Baja and the invasion. Jacque, using his riches, hired a mighty force and ships to beat back the Baja. And Chow, being a giant cyborg, was able to use his abilities and his lasers and rockets to beat back the Baja, who was stunned to see a cyborg. I did not realize that the Cibic had such technology working with them. Reading the Cibic's plans and seeing how they fight, the Baja decided to retreat after a short time. While all this was going on, the Crimson Swordsman Baruch and the foreign mage Denny had formed a relationship. These two were close as they were of the same generation almost. As Baruch was 37, Denny was 24, but they came to the service of the Cibic government led by Crystal, the doctor leader, at the same time. They were tasked with a secret mission to make contact with the City Group. See, the City Group were an ancient ally of the old Cibic ancestors, the Forbidden, along with the Scotia and the City Group during the ancient days, and formed the Forbidden Alliance, which was a key player in the Second Great War. In order to have their plans in place, they needed this resurrected background power on their side in order for things to work out in the secret plan. And so they made contact with them. And the City Group were being led by a man who was very young. His name was Zuma Zuma. And he was a very shady and very secretive man. He had this amazing hot girlfriend named Candy Cook. Her beauty and long black hair and fair skin was that to behold. And she was a cold-hearted and ruthless warrior. And also, within the City Group, they had Claire. He is a 24-year-old young general of the City Group, and he leads their battalions. And last, we have Jenna, a young warrior who just loves winning and hates losing. Zuma Zuma was quite impressed that the Crimson Swordsman and the Mage of Cibic will come out to reach out to them by alliance. He had heard of this of his forefathers and ancestors working with the Cibic and the Furbin, but he was skeptical that during this age of chaos the Furbin had a chance. However, they explained that the Scotia were great friends with them and that was all they needed. And given how many powers were in the universe fighting for control, them standing alone would meet certain destruction, but an alliance between them would work. Zuma Zuma was quite impressed and wanted to hear more. However, just then an insurance force came to attack their galaxy. The Sun Insurance invaded them. They were led by Portia, the shy girl who was with the Sun Insurance that were under the Vishians. But out of the three friends, she remained as the others died in the war. They were stunned and found an old ally of the Rishians of old now led the insurance power in the galaxy, and worse yet, in the universe, and worse yet, they were attacking the galaxy. Else with her was that of Tamar's son. He was an armored man, and all of them basically had the sun symbol on them, and were orange like the sun. Also, there was a man named Zane, son, who was a blob, who could transform into a blob, and he's very durable. Bullets hardly penetrated him, and he could transform to a ball or anything to bounce around and consume you, and all these different other bouncy and stretchy powers. He was a true menace. The Cibic and the City Group had to work together for the first time in a long time to beat back the Sun invaders. However, they had a trump card, the Sun Destroyers. These Sun Destroyers were super ships that generated power from the sun. And that day just happened to be a very hot day. And the forces were stunned. It's like, oh no, we have to destroy those Sun Destroyers. If not, then Citigroup and Cibic will be lost. Yes, said Borduk. Watch my sword play in action. I will chase these insurance back to their home galaxy, and so they would never attack Bankuran again. And so Borduk raced with his sword abilities and just started slicing and dicing Sun troops until he got to the Sun Destroyer controls, destroyed the operators, and lashed bombs to the Sun Destroyer machine and blew it up. The Sun Destroyer, devastated that the destroyer was destroyed, halted and began the retreat. Then suddenly the main leader of the Sun Insurance, the boss himself, Vish Sun, then ambushed Borduk and challenged him to a duel. The two swordsmen fight. However, Vish Sun, who was 44, was much more skilled than the Borduk, and he easily pushed Borduk back. So much that Borduk lost his sword, and his sword went flying in the air. And Borduk was on the ground, and Vish pointed his sword to Borduk's throat. However, Vish did not slay Borduk, as their battle was already decided. However, Vish scorned Borduk for claiming a title as the last Crimson Swordsman of Cibic, but yet was still so weak and pathetic in swordplay. And so he scolded him, and then retreated. Borduk then got up and picked up his sword, disgusted, knowing that he had much work to do in order to become a better swordsman. During that time, Jenny was trying to cheer him up and using her mage powers trying to heal the injured forces of the City Crew and Cibic. Zuma Zuma saw all this happen and was quite amused and decided that their forces would join the Scotia and the Cibic after all, seeing that they were just attacked by the insurance, knowing that if they stayed by themselves, the insurance or some other banking power might come. And so the firm being alliance was reestablished, and the plans of the Cibic were going according to plan. Elsewhere in the universe, for their part, the Scotia forces led by Hetema and the leader of the Scotia, May and Sue, and the General Mavic had some new players on their side. That of Susie, who is the veteran leader of the Scotian and the universe. General Nolan, who was a powerful general and led a mighty force of Scotian troops, overflowing so much that the troops themselves had to be stationed in many moons and planets with just soldiers, because the Scotians had an influx of troops, and because they never mass produced or went to many major wars in all the eons. They had an unlimited amount of forces on their side, and so they were key for the Forbidden Plan. And General Nolan led these forces. And we have Sheena Pratt, who was a devotee to Susan and almost like a disciple to Susan, as Susan was training her in the skills of a Scotian fighter. The forces of the Scotian were being attacked by the Tectoran of the Orician Bankrun, Salvia and Facial, who were the main leaders of the Orician Bankrun, along with their men, Foster, the genius behind their technology, and Ziva, the fighter. Zaria of Kadin were also there. Zaria was a spoiled brat, a very vain woman who didn't really care much about anything but herself, and thus was very unliked. However, she had one best friend named Patricia, who was Zaria's only friend. Despite her mean ways and lack of good social skills, they remained friends. And then they were also they were leading the Tectoran, who was under the charge of Karklin, who was a former powerful warrior of the Tectorans in the dimensions, and one to be feared, along with Kid Crash and the Tecton androids. This massive force had come to obliterate the Cibic and the Scotia. So the Scotian launched a blockade, preventing their ships from attacking. The Tectoran ships were powerful and strong, with Tectoran and Orician technology to boot. The Scotian forces struggled. However, they used their determination and the overwhelming might of troop numbers to give each troop their own fighter jet, and they fought in space. They swarmed the Tectoran battleships like swarm of bees surrounding them. Unable to get a good foothold, the Orician Bankrons decided to back off from the invasion of Scotian after some time. Beating back this massive force, the Scotians survived and proved their worth as allies of Cibic. Lastly, Hetema and the main Scotia will then go ahead and save Lash, who was a part of one of his missions but had found himself in trouble, as Lash's mission against the Amalu was not to go unpunished, for they sent Homer to assassinate him. However, Homer was not going to be allowed to complete the hit that his employer had on Lash, as Hetema and Lash worked together to fight off this man. And then the warrior was also with Homer. And this major fight happened at a small town on the home world of Scotia. the homeworld Azima. How bold of them to come all the way here. These are Mafia people are quite dangerous, don't you think, Lash? Yes, Satama, my good friend. However, you must do away with them. Hurry! Sooner or later, the Scotian Cibic forces beat back their would-be assailants, and the Irishans escaped in their stealth ship. With that, they was able to stay alive and fight another day.